The Green Bay Packers are heading into the 2026 draft without a first-round pick, and somehow, that might be the most dangerous move of all. With Jordan Love now the face of the franchise, every decision matters, but one wrong call could quietly derail everything before it even begins. But what if their biggest mistake is the move they never make? The Green Bay Packers are walking into the 2026 NFL Draft without a first-round pick, and at first glance it feels like a calculated, patient move. But the deeper you look, the more it starts to feel like a quiet gamble that could define the entire future of this team. Because in today's NFL, first-round talent isn't just valuable, it's often the difference between competing and falling behind fast. This is a franchise that just handed the keys to Jordan Love, and while his rise has brought excitement back to Green Bay, it also brings pressure. Pressure to build fast, pressure to surround him with real game-changing talent, and that's exactly where things get risky. Without a first-round pick, the Packers are essentially betting that they can find elite production in the middle rounds, something that sounds smart in theory, but rarely works out perfectly in reality. Historically, teams without first-round selections tend to miss out on that top-tier, instant-impact player. The kind of player who doesn't need development, who doesn't need patience, who just shows up and changes everything. Instead, you're left hoping your second and third-round picks outperform expectations. And hope is not a strategy when your division is getting stronger and your window is just starting to open. There's also the question fans can't seem to agree on: should Green Bay stay patient, trust their board, and build depth? Or should they make a bold move and trade up to grab a player they truly believe in? Because standing still might look safe, but in a league built on aggression, playing it safe can quietly cost you everything. And if the Packers get this wrong, it won't show immediately. It'll show a year from now when the players they passed on are dominating somewhere else. And that's when this safe strategy might start looking like their biggest mistake. The Green Bay Packers have a problem that not many people are talking about, and it could quietly become their biggest weakness in 2026. On paper, the secondary looks serviceable. There are names, there's rotation, there's depth. But when you really break it down, one question keeps coming up: who is the true CB1? Because in today's NFL, having solid corners isn't enough. You need a lockdown presence, a corner who can travel with the opponent's best receiver and completely change how offenses operate. And right now, Green Bay doesn't clearly have that guy. Players like Carrington Valentine and Kaizian Nixon have shown flashes, but flashes don't win matchups against elite receivers every single week. That's where the pressure starts building. Reports suggest the Packers have been quietly eyeing cornerbacks in this draft, especially players who can step into that boundary role immediately. Someone like a Chris Johnson-type prospect doesn't just add depth, he potentially reshapes the entire secondary. Suddenly, everyone else falls into more natural roles. The defense becomes more flexible, more aggressive. But here's the issue: relying on a mid-round pick to solve your CB1 problem is a massive gamble. Corners take time to develop. Even highly drafted ones struggle early. And without a first-round selection, Green Bay is essentially betting that they can find a true shutdown corner outside of the elite tier. That's not impossible, but it's far from guaranteed. And if they miss, this defense could be exposed in ways fans aren't ready for. Because every week, they'll be facing receivers who demand double coverage, who force mismatches, who take over games if left unchecked. Without a true CB1, the entire defensive scheme starts to bend, and eventually, it breaks. So while fans focus on flashy picks and offensive weapons, this cornerback situation is quietly sitting in the background, waiting to become a major storyline. And fixing this one issue might be exactly what exposes another problem they're not ready for. The Green Bay Packers might say they're confident in their pass rush heading into 2026, but if you look closer, there's a level of uncertainty that's hard to ignore. On the surface, the edge room has talent. There are young players, rotational pieces, and flashes of upside. But when it comes to consistent, game-changing pressure, that's where things start to feel incomplete. Because in today's NFL, having an average pass rush isn't enough. You need disruption. You need players who can take over drives, force bad throws, and completely shift momentum in a matter of seconds. And right now, outside of their core contributors, the Packers are relying heavily on potential rather than proven production. That's where the concern begins. Young edge rushers often take time to develop, and not all of them hit their ceiling. Some plateau, some disappear in big moments, and when your defense depends on that growth happening quickly, it becomes a serious risk. Reports suggest Green Bay is still evaluating just how much they can trust their current group, and that uncertainty could push them toward drafting another edge earlier than expected. A prospect like a Ramilo Height-type player represents more than just depth. It signals hesitation. It suggests the team isn't fully sold on what they already have. And while adding competition can be healthy, it also creates pressure. Because now you're not just developing players, you're questioning them. The real danger? If this pass rush doesn't take a leap, everything else on defense becomes harder. Coverage breaks down faster. Blitz packages become predictable. Opposing quarterbacks get comfortable, and once that happens, even a solid defense starts to crack. So while the edge room might not look like a glaring weakness today, it's one of those positions that can quietly decide how far this team goes. And just when it feels like the defense is the priority, the offense might be facing an even bigger risk. The Green Bay Packers may look set at running back right now, but the situation surrounding Josh Jacobs is far more complicated than it seems. On the surface, Jacobs is still a productive, proven player. He brings toughness, experience, and reliability to the offense. But behind the scenes, there's a growing question the Packers can't ignore: how long can this really last? Because the reality of the NFL today is brutal for running backs. Careers are shorter, declines happen faster, and teams are becoming more hesitant to commit long-term money to the position. Jacobs is already on a significant contract, and looking ahead, his cap hit is expected to rise. That creates a tough decision for Green Bay: pay him even more, restructure, or consider moving on before it's too late. Some reports suggest the Packers could save a significant amount of cap space if they eventually decide to part ways with Jacobs. And while that might sound shocking right now, it's exactly how modern NFL teams operate. They don't wait for decline, they try to move early, sometimes even a year too early. That's why drafting a running back like a Le'Veon Moss-type prospect suddenly makes a lot more sense. It's not just about adding depth, it's about preparing for a future where Jacobs might not be part of the plan. A younger, cheaper, explosive option waiting in the wings, ready to take over when the time comes. But here, where it gets risky. If the Packers start planning too far ahead, they could weaken their current offense. Because replacing a player like Jacobs isn't easy. His presence forces defenses to respect the run. He takes pressure off Jordan Love, and losing that stability too soon could create problems the offense isn't ready for. So now the Packers are stuck in a difficult balance: win now with Jacobs or quietly prepare for life after him. And the move they make here could impact this offense more than any draft pick ever will. The Green Bay Packers might not be getting much criticism for their offensive line right now, but that silence could be exactly what makes this situation so dangerous. Because while the unit looks good enough on paper, there are too many unanswered questions hiding beneath the surface, and they all connect back to one thing: protecting Jordan Love. At first glance, the Packers have invested in their line. There's youth, there's versatility, and there's some promising development. But when you look closer, nothing feels fully locked in. The guard position, still uncertain. The tackle situation, not as stable as fans might think. Players are being moved, tested, and projected into roles they haven't fully proven they can handle yet. And that's where the risk starts to build. Offensive line success isn't just about talent, it's about chemistry, consistency, and trust. One weak link can break the entire structure. One missed assignment can turn into a drive-killing sack, or worse, a hit that changes your quarterback's confidence. The Packers are essentially betting that their young linemen will develop fast enough to keep up with the growing expectations of this offense. But development isn't guaranteed. Some players take years, some never fully adjust. And if that timeline doesn't match what the team needs right now, the consequences show up immediately on the field. That's why mid-round picks like a Billy Schroth-type guard aren't just depth additions, they're insurance. They're a sign that Green Bay knows this group isn't as secure as it looks, because if they were truly confident, they wouldn't keep adding competition. And here's the part fans often overlook: if the offensive line struggles, everything else falls apart. The run game becomes predictable. The passing game speeds up too much, and suddenly, Jordan Love is under constant pressure, forced to make rushed decisions before plays can even develop. So while the spotlight might be on flashy positions, this quiet uncertainty in the trenches could end up deciding everything. And if this unit doesn't hold up, none of the other draft moves will even matter. The Green Bay Packers might not get judged on their late-round picks right away, but history shows that's often where drafts are quietly won or completely fall apart. And for Green Bay in 2026, these final selections could carry more risk than anyone expects. Because once you get past the early rounds, everything changes. The players are less polished. The margins get thinner, and teams start taking chances on upside, on traits, on projects that might take years to develop if they develop at all. That's exactly where the Packers tend to lean in. Under Matt LaFleur, there's been a clear pattern: target athletic upside, trust the system, and mold players over time. It sounds smart, it sounds sustainable, but it also comes with a hidden downside. Not every project works out. Take the tight end position, for example. Behind Tucker Kraft, there's still uncertainty. The potential is there, but consistency hasn't fully shown up yet. So adding a late-round tight end like a Max Bredesen-type player feels like a low-risk move until you realize you might be relying on another unproven option if things don't click. Then there's the quarterback room. Drafting a late-round QB to sit behind Jordan Love fits the long-term vision. Develop quietly, build depth, maybe strike gold. But let's be real, most late-round quarterbacks never become anything more than backups. And if you're counting on finding the next hidden gem, you're playing a very unpredictable game. That's the real issue here. These picks aren't just about filling roster spots, they're about betting on development timelines. And if too many of those bets miss, you're left with holes that suddenly feel a lot bigger than they should. Fans often overlook these selections because they don't carry the same hype. But when the season starts and depth gets tested and injuries hit, that's when these decisions come back into focus. And if Green Bay gets this part wrong, it won't be obvious at first. It'll slowly show up when they need these players the most. And by the time that happens, it might already be too late to fix it. The Green Bay Packers might walk away from the 2026 NFL Draft with a solid grade, something like a B+ on paper. And at first, that sounds like a win. No major reaches, no obvious mistakes, positions of need addressed across the board. It looks balanced, it looks responsible, it looks safe. But that's exactly where the debate begins. Because in today's NFL, safe doesn't always mean successful. A draft without a true difference maker can quietly hold a team back, even if every pick makes sense individually. And that's the biggest question surrounding this Packers class. Did they actually get better, or did they just avoid getting worse? There's no doubt they added depth, possibly improved competition at key positions, maybe even found a few long-term starters. But where is the player that changes everything? The one who forces defenses to adjust, who takes over games, who becomes the identity of the team. Without a first-round pick, Green Bay was always going to face that challenge, and instead of making an aggressive move to go get their guy, they chose patience. They trusted the board, they stayed disciplined. And sometimes that works perfectly. But other times, it leaves you watching other teams walk away with stars. That's the risk, because if even one of those elite players turns into a superstar somewhere else, the conversation changes instantly. Suddenly, this smart draft starts looking like a missed opportunity, and fans begin asking the question no front office wants to hear: why didn't we take that shot? At the same time, there's another side to this. If the Packers hit on multiple mid-round picks, if their development system works, if Jordan Love continues to rise, this draft could quietly become one of the most important in shaping a sustainable contender. So now everything comes down to one thing: execution, not just on draft night, but in the months and years that follow. Because in the end, this wasn't just about who they picked. It was about the risks they were willing and unwilling to take. And the real outcome of this draft won't be decided today, it'll be revealed when it's already too late to change it.